Douglas Cooling and Heating, serving the Birmingham area for 38 years. 988-3706. That's Douglas.
This is your Weather Xtreme video for Saturday, September the 17th. Yes, where did September go? I'm meteorologist Brian Peters. Thanks for tuning in. Let's get right to an interesting forecast coming up. How about some Skycam imagery this morning? There's a shot from our Mount Cheaha Skycam, looking down the spine of the Appalachians as we look down to the southeast from the highest point in the state of Alabama, and definitely some clouds, and we're dealing with, believe it or not, a wedge. So it is going to be an interesting forecast. Not quite as cloudy as we head over to Jasper. You can see the little bit of color in the eastern sky as the sun is getting set to rise this morning. We do have kind of an interesting weather pattern with a large surface high-pressure system over New York and Pennsylvania, and that is creating what we refer to as the wedge, or cold air damming. Notice how the pressure pattern comes around the southern tip of the Appalachians, and what that does is to bring in some cooler air, sometimes some moisture, and along with that moisture with definitely clouds, and along with those clouds, maybe a little drizzle and perhaps even a small patch of light rain or even a small shower. And that's what we're going to be dealing with for the next several days, and at least that looks fairly reasonable in terms of the forecast, but after that, things begin to diverge, unfortunately. In the upper atmosphere, we are dealing with a little shortwave over the eastern Great Lakes that's making its influence felt in the eastern half of the country, and a little bit of a ridge in the north-central part of the United States. We're still at least a little cooler. Even Texas is down this morning with temperatures. And remember, these are 5 a.m. temperatures, so the temperatures across the southern tier of the United States still pretty warm in the 60s and 70s, especially in Texas. But generally across the country, we're down into the 40s and 50s, so the hint of fall in the air at least a little bit. You certainly can see the effects of the wedge on the kind of close-in observations from the southeastern U.S. as we see that easterly flow coming around from South Carolina across Georgia. And, of course, they'll be influenced. Georgia's influenced more than we are, but we certainly have some influence there. And you certainly can see some differences. We see that on the eastern part of the state that temperatures generally around the lower and mid-50s, while in the western part of the state, temperatures generally in the lower 60s for the most part. QPF indicating some rain over the next 5 days, especially after a couple of days, so we're looking more towards the middle of the week. Storm Prediction Center outlooking a slight risk for severe weather in parts of Oklahoma, Texas, and Kansas, and that day 2, there's no specific area. The green area representing, of course, where thunderstorms are possible, and we see a C text over Oklahoma, so some threat of severe weather there. Tropics have become a little bit quieter, but we are now looking and watching a rather concentrated area of cloudiness that is just come off the African continent. And I was looking at the shear analysis, and the shear is increasing in that area, but it's also moving to the west, and as it does, it's moving into an area where the shear is not quite as great. So the National Hurricane Center has posted a 30% chance of some formation of a tropical system in the next 48 hours. Definitely one we'll be watching, and probably watching for a while since this one is so far out. The morning 06Z GFS model run, and the GFS and the European are in fairly good agreement, at least through a couple, 3 days. After that, there's some differences in the forecast, and of course, we usually present the GFS here, but it may be the European has a better handle on it. But you can see our ridge, and the surface pattern creating the wedge that is coming in as a result of the high-pressure system basically over New York and New England. On Sunday, we see that the pattern in the upper atmosphere is shifting. We're getting a nice trough coming in from central Canada into the western Great Lakes and the north-central U.S. In the meantime, our little trough has moved off, and what that means is we'll probably be dry, but we're going to have to watch out for the possibility of some clouds, and with the clouds, the possibility of some drizzle with the wedge. And you can see that the wedge still showing up on Sunday. By Monday, things beginning to progress a little more. We're seeing that trough coming across Canada, and it's beginning to at least influence down into the Ohio River Valley, and so that's good. There'll be a front along with that, so at least the north central part of the United States will see the effects of the front. That trough moves off into eastern Canada fairly quickly, but another one drops in right behind it, so we see one over the Dakotas. And, of course, the first one dragging a front that will actually probably be dragged down into the southeastern U.S. here as we look at Tuesday. So definitely the rain chances kind of pick up a little bit on Tuesday. And notice that the wedge is not there now. The surface high has moved off into the Atlantic, and as a result, the wedge pattern has decreased, so we should see at least a little bit of a warm-up. The trough coming into the north-central part of the United States and the western Great Lakes begins to take better shape as we head into Wednesday, and of course that means more development ahead of that. But in the meantime, we've got whatever is leftover boundary in our area, so it looks like Wednesday will introduce a chance for some showers, and I don't think, again, that everybody's going to get wet and this whole area is going to see rain like the GFS is showing there. Boy, the trough really becomes elongated, and this is where some differences occur with the European. I don't have access to all of the European models, but certainly some fairly significant differences. You can see the trough that the GFS is developing, and of course, that just keeps us in the moisture and the southwesterly flow, so that means chances for rain continue on Thursday and then again on Friday. And this is where the differences become even bigger because the GFS is suggesting a cutoff low over northeastern Oklahoma and southeastern Kansas. The European not suggesting quite like that, so question of which one is going to be right. And of course, if wherever that closed low is, if that closed low is there, then we're going to see some rain. And of course, for us, the moisture's still there with that slight southwesterly flow. The closed low, according to the GFS, still with us a week from today. So that could mean that we'll be a little bit wet on Saturday, a week from today. Now, going out into further voodoo country, you can see that even by Sunday, the GFS holding on to that closed low. And I can understand that. Now, if the closed low isn't there, of course, the GFS is completely wrong. But the GFS holding on to it because it is a pretty substantial feature. But it does finally end its influence by the end of the period at 384 hours. This is Monday, the 3rd of October. Oh boy, October. And that means the National Weather Association's national conference coming to the Winfrey, starting the 15th. Isn't that wonderful? All right, I want to take and divert just for a moment to a non-weather topic. And I know this is a little out of character, but I'd like to introduce you to Sergeant Dakota Meyer. And I'd like to congratulate him on his receipt of the Medal of Honor from President Obama. And you can see him pictured here in the ceremony at the White House. I would like to suggest to everybody that you Google Dakota Meyer and read the story of what this gentleman did. It's absolutely amazing. When the unit was pinned down in Afghanistan, he actually went into a very intense firefight 5 times and rescued 36 people and brought out the bodies of 4 that had been killed. And he calls himself no hero, but I certainly would like to say, Sergeant Meyer, we salute you, and congratulations on the Medal of Honor. Well, that'll do it for the Weather Xtreme video. I hope that you have a wonderful Saturday, and I hope your team wins, whatever team you're following. Have a great day, and Godspeed.
Each day there are new stories to tell about the people who live here and the place we call home.
All of the faces that I see, all of the places close to me, they're all part of all the best things about home.
Sharing your stories on ABC 3340, Alabama's news leader.